God bless you. It's great to connect with you. Thank you so much for staying with us. Thank you so much for your encouragement. Thank you so much for your prayers. And I know that there are a few around. I, I may not know everyone, but I know that there are a few who are praying for us, and I certainly do appreciate the prayer. And that is all I really desire, the prayers of those whom I love, whether I know you or not. I want to love you anyway. So may God continue to bless you. We are in the last quarter, I would say, of the book of Ecclesiastes, namely Ecclesiastes chapter 9. In our last session, we read the entire chapter, all 17, 18 verses. I'm sure that you were surprised. Well, when I say surprised, if you did read it with us, or you read it before, or you read it recently, probably within the last few hours or minutes, there are certain things there that you may have preached before, you may have taught, you may have used various verses to console, to counsel, to give instruction. You may have preached a very inspiring message. Very rare do we see preachers who have or heard preachers turn to the book of Ecclesiastes. Now, I will agree with you. I'm not omniscient. I'm not omnipresent. So I'm not hearing anybody or everybody all at the same time. I don't have that ability at all. I'm many flesh and blood like yourself. So you may be the lucky ones where your pastor, your bishop, your presbyter uses the book or reference to the book of Ecclesiastes frequently. And that is great because we shouldn't just use one particular area of the Bible, particular group of books to just preach from at all times. Even though, and if I may just divert a little, because I haven't done much of that these days, but even looking at the world in which we live, the seasons of our life, the political, the social, the financial, the world of business, even when we look and see what's happening in our world right now, yes, we are guided, we are directed very much to the prophetic books. And we could always address the books like Daniel, Ezekiel, Isaiah, Zechariah, and a more notable book that everybody would know of, which is Revelation. We could always go to that. And again, there's nothing wrong because we should also encourage everyone. We should encourage everybody, especially of the time and the season in which we are living. I believe that we should. Um, so yes, those books in our day and time is very much be placed before ourselves and those that we are looking after, reminding them daily, week, weekly, monthly, of the coming of the Lord. But in between those times, if at all you can squeeze in the other books, I believe we should open the book of Ecclesiastes. I call that one particular because that's where we are at this moment. If it was anywhere else, then I would mention that book also. We've done quite a few books up to this point. So it's important. It's important that we look at these books, at these chapters, at these verses. So important. We must live and we must encourage those who are around us, those who are before us, behind us, beside us, whether it be weekly, daily, weekly, or monthly. We should encourage them to live wisely and live wisely day by day, day to day. We should. And especially today, this very day that we live, I ought to be able to encourage you to live wisely today, not tomorrow. I don't know what tomorrow may hold. And again, that's the theme of, or the topic of this particular session. Verse 1 of chapter 9 of the book of Ecclesiastes. He says, no individual knows what awaits them. We do not know what awaits us. Solomon, the king of Israel, the wise man, man of knowledge and of great understanding, the preacher, the teacher, here, he is reminding us. He was telling them in his day, I'm sure. Again, let me rehearse all what I've been saying before in the previous day, that Solomon may have sat on his throne. He may have gone into another auditorium where others, one or two or five or 100 or whatever the case may be, there would be some who would sit around him to listen to him. Probably he was in the garden. He loved the garden, it would seem, from what we have been told. Obviously, it's no use gathering areas of understanding, of knowledge, of wisdom, and not share it at all with anybody. It's pointless, isn't it? So obviously, I do believe you don't have to accept it as is, but I do believe he may have sat with others, stood. He may have been in a very relaxed atmosphere, sharing knowledge, sharing his wisdom, sharing his understanding of life and of things that were around him, the things of nature. He was sharing with his knowledge then. And today he's still sharing, but he's telling us, listen, Graham, he's saying, you don't know what awaits you in the future. You just don't know. And so, therefore, as in the previous chapter, we need to live wisely day by day, from one day to the next, from one moment to the next, from 1 minute, second, whatever the time that you want to place it, you ought to live wisely. And so, looking at this particular verse 1, let's read this one verse from the King James Version, and then I'll read another Bible translation. Obviously, use that. If that's what you feel comfortable with, then by all means, I can't tell you which is best. I will tell you what I feel comfortable with. I've always had the King James Version. I've always used the King James. So I love the King James Version. And in my time of reading and other Bible translations also, I've come to also love the Jewish text, which I have. It's a Jewish study Bible that I have used over the months and weeks, days that I've been doing this. And it helps me to understand further. It helps me to understand further that I can properly communicate to others, whether it be 1, 5, 10, 15 individuals, 60 people, 100 people. I can properly share my understanding. I don't know about wisdom. There may be a few people who may believe that I'm not wise at all. And that's why I want to be wise. I want to live a godly life. The fear of God is the beginning of wisdom. So let's read from the King James Version or whatever version that you may have. Verse 1 of chapter 9 of Ecclesiastes. For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all for them. Can I read it again? Then I'm from the Jewish text. For all this I considered in my heart, even to declare all this, that the righteous and the wise and their works are in the hand of God. No man knoweth either love or hatred by all that is before them. The Jewish text here says it like this: I applied to all of this, sifted through it, and concluded that the righteous and the wise, along with their deeds, are God. A person cannot know whether these people and deeds will be rewarded with love or with hatred. All options. Can I read it again? I applied myself to all of this, sifted through it, and concluded that the righteous and the wise, along with their deeds, are in God. A person cannot know whether these people and deeds will be rewarded with love or with hatred. All options. Here I can just imagine Solomon in his thoughts leading up to this point. Whatever he found out, whatever he was investigating, and he, with all the wisdom and the understanding and knowledge that he gained in whatever he was studying, I could see him sitting down for hours on end, thinking about what he had found out, and I could imagine him hours on end, nothing, nobody around him. He just sitting there in quiet contemplation, and I think that that is what Solomon is expecting us to do. Remember, I believe it was in this chapter that we should observe and think. That's what he said. That's what, and if we all did that, I think we would be in a much better position. Many of us, probably what I've experienced in my life over the many years, if I had observed much more and thought more deeply over the things that I had to make decisions about. Probably my a lot of what I have experienced, I wouldn't. And I think that everybody, if they did just that, they wouldn't be. A lot of people would not be in the situation and feeling the experiences that they are experiencing. Especially when he says here, I applied myself to all this, sifted through it, and concluded. So obviously, he's had a lot of things to think about. He's thought about a lot of things that he's had to understand and see. So when he says here in verse 1, and this is just verse 1 alone, there's 2 points here that he wants to leave with us. And the 2 points, I just give you the heading. And again, forgive me, because there is much more that is to be said about this than what I'm going to share with you in the 5 or 10 minutes that I may spend with you. I'm not doing it justice at all. You may say, well, if you know you're not giving it justice, then why are you going to touch it? Well, I understand that you may have reasons for saying that, and valid reasons for saying that. But again, if we don't touch something, if we don't ruffle the leaves, I'm just using that as an example. If we don't ruffle things that are around us, we'll never really know what's beneath it. We'll never really understand or see the value of what may be beneath all of what is around us. And sorry, I was going to say Ezekiel. Well, that could apply to the book of Ezekiel also. But Ecclesiastes here, there is so much about this book. There is so much that we have ruffled and we've troubled. And I believe that we ought to trouble it some more. ruffle the feathers or ruffle the leaves a little bit more. Um, make things, if I can use quote unquote a mess. So it's not that I want to um, teach rubbish or foolishness or anything like that. No, that's not my intention. My intention is for us, you and I, you and me, so that when we look at the book that we don't really read as much as we should, and when we think and using the words that Solomon says, think deeply in this book, especially in relation to ourselves and how we relate to each other and to the environment, nature, and everything that is around us, then I think that we would be better men, better women, better servants, vessels uh, in the presence and in the sight of God. We would probably even make ourselves more available, even though we may say that we have made ourselves available before the Lord, but have we? And are we making ourselves available as we should? But the 2 points here, and I'm hoping not to spend too long a time here with you today, because I know you have other things to do. But the 2 points here is one, the righteous and the wise are in God's hands. Solomon, the preacher and the teacher, I think he's making that point quite clear. The wise and the righteous are in the hands of God, and they are under his care. And two, there is no individual, whether that the individual is righteous or unrighteous, who knows whether love or hate lies as we journey through life. And as we journey through life for today, we don't know what lies ahead of us. You may say, I planned out my day, I planned out my time. You may say that I know exactly what's going to be happening down the road. And when I say down the road, I don't mean the literal road in which you live, but I'm talking about life for this day. You know you have made plans, and you've set out your plans, and you know exactly what you'll be doing and who's coming and where you're going and all that. But then as you journey and as you go through your day, things happen. Disappointments come. Joys come. Sickness comes. Sometimes you may not feel well at all, and then that just brings other avenues, other doors open that you just don't want open. We just don't know what's ahead of us. And Solomon, he's making that quite clear to us. We just don't know what is ahead of us. So we need to keep these things in mind. The future is unpredictable. Death is inevitable. And we must make the most of life while we can. The future is unpredictable, even though you may plan out your day, your week, your month. You have 6 months plans or a year, and you know exactly what you want to accomplish in the next 5 years. You may have a 5-year plan, 2.5-year plan, a 10-year plan. Nothing at all wrong with that. Future is unpredictable. You just don't know what's going to be taken. Death is inevitable. You cannot delay death. And Solomon in previous chapters, he tells us that death comes to all. Death comes to all, and we're not strong enough to delay it. We are not rich enough to put it off. We can't. So death for all of us, anything that's alive is going to die. From the smallest, and at one point, if going to high school and such, many of you may have studied the amoeba. Very small, very small um, microcosm or very small animal. Let me put it that way. We can't see it with the naked eye, but it's there. People, if you have a microscope um, powerful enough for you to see, and I'm sure there are smaller animals smaller than that, but even that has a limited time of life. Anything that's alive, even the largest thing, the elephants or the whale, the blue whale, which is the largest mammal on the planet. I believe it's a mammal. That dies. Man dies. Things will die, but it is inevitable. So what Solomon has been saying to you and I, even up until the previous chapter, is what? And he recommends it in verse 15 of chapter 8. What does he say? So I recommend enjoyment. A person can do nothing better under the sun than eat, drink, and enjoy himself. So enjoy yourself. But remember, the future is unpredictable. The teacher here did not reach this conclusion about individuals or people, but only about certain class or specific groups of people, the righteous and the wise. The righteous stand in contrast to the wicked. Any person who lives wickedly walks in disobedience to God's law and is therefore not in God's hands, not under his care, but the righteous, the person who obeys God's word and commandment, is in God's hands. The righteous, they are under his care. The wise stand in contrast to the foolish. The person who pursues folly and madness, who makes poor choices, is not in God's hands or under his care. But the wise and the person who sees life from God's perspective, walks accordingly, is in God's hand and under his care. To be in the master's hands and under his care simply means that God looks after and cares for the person who lives righteously and wisely. And that's where our focus should be. If that's not what we're doing right now, you and I, then we ought to have a mind and our determination and our focus should be to live wisely. In our previous session, we've looked at that. Knowing our limitations and living wisely day by day. That's so important. It's pointless me saying, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian, I'm a Christian. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. It's not just talking about it. It's not just talking and telling others like what I'm doing for you, but it's that I must do it. It's a way of life. It's a way of life. The second point here, which is no person knows whether love or hate lies ahead. Even the wise have no control over the future and no power over the outcome of their deeds. We don't have that power. We don't have that control. And there are no guarantees. Let us note again what the teacher, the preacher here is saying. The interpretation of love and hate is unclear and varies among the various theologians and teachers of theology. Some understand it as a general symbolic term that serves as an alternate term for good and bad. Some view it as representing the favor or disfavor of God upon a person's life and work. And three, the third point here, others interpret it as applying to the favor or disfavor of other men. The repeating of these terms later on supports these or this particular view. But no person, no individual We don't know whether love or hate lies ahead of us, but we need to be wise in our everyday living. We need to be under the care of the Master. We need to be under the care of God. Solomon, Solomon found that out. I don't know what age he may have been in his twilight years. I don't know how long he would have had to left to rule or to be the king over Israel. But I'm certain that he must have come to some understanding that all that he did before was just senseless. Feeding the wind, he called it, vanity, a waste of time, and all that. It is now that Solomon is telling us is that we must place and leave ourselves in the care of God, hearing his commandments. Remember, Solomon had the books of Moses with him. He didn't have what we have, for instance, like Genesis uh, to Malachi and Matthew to Revelation. He never had the 66. What he did have is that he had the books of the law, the commandments that God gave Moses. He didn't have Isaiah, Jeremiah, Ezekiel, or the later prophets to be there. He never had that. But what he is firmly pointing us to is the commandments of God. We have the commandments of God and more. And Solomon, the preacher, the teacher, he's telling us we should look to him. We should lean on him. We should rest on his word. The wise man follows the Lord. The wise man obeys God's word. And we are in his hand and we are under his care. I think that's so important for you and I today. That we are under the care of the Almighty and we should rest and ourselves. May God bless you, love you, and we trust and we hope that you've been blessed today. We'll go further into